Denver Broncos, Mile High View, no commercials, no bullshit. Still at the in-laws compound in New York. Going to talk about the benching of Russell Wilson, which seems to have everybody up in arms. I have a different take than most people, even my own co-hosts. I don't believe that it's a big issue. Quite frankly, the playoff possibility is done. It's over with. So there's really no point, in my opinion, to have Russell Wilson in there to begin with, risking an injury. I mean, what's the point? You might as well just start looking at who you want to keep on the roster at this point. And that would include the backup quarterback. Anyway, we've done enough film study on this channel. We don't really get into the hype and all the bullshit that the front office puts out there with their content creators. We look at film and then we give our 2 cents on it. And this is what we're seeing. And we've done enough film on Russell Wilson to know who he is and who he's not. And also the fact is of the player personnel around him. There's a history with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson that predates the Denver Broncos for both players. We were the only Broncos platform that said that New Orleans was one of the places where Russell Wilson wanted to go, and Sean Payton was still under contract, although he wasn't the coach, he was still under contract. So the idea was that Russell Wilson would go to Sean Payton, and they would work together. I think they have a relationship. So to me, what's the sense? Again, what's the sense in Russell Wilson playing? It's not going to. You're getting, maybe he could get injured or whatever. The Broncos are screwed too. $250 million. I just don't see him going anywhere. I think he's shoeboxed in as the Broncos quarterback. Also, I do not see Payton sticking around after Sean Payton goes, because we all know Sean Payton doesn't want to rebuild teams. He's not a team. He is not into the rebuild. He wants to be kind of like Deion Sanders back in the day. He wants to go to a ready-built team, and I don't know why he thought the Broncos were that, but again, he has had some sort of special relation behind the scenes with Russell Wilson. Both wanted to be together. I don't, some may argue they don't no longer want to be together, but I think that Wilson's stuck in Denver unless the Broncos decide to get rid of him. So I don't think he's going to be going anywhere at this point. I also want to discuss the state of the Broncos. They're not a very good team. The film clearly shows that. People are finally realizing that, yes, you don't have the offensive line you thought you had. Just because you get away with more holding than anybody else doesn't mean that you can actually stop defenders from coming in. And they can't. They can't stop quality defenders from coming in because they just don't have the player personnel for that. And they will continue to struggle in that department. They will continue to struggle on the defensive side, where quarterbacks can read War and Peace. We did plenty of film study during the winning streak, and we showed that had these teams not coughed the ball up, or they didn't have their backup quarterback in, or coaches making stupid play call decisions, that these would have most likely been losses, or at minimum, they would have been very difficult games for the Broncos to pull a win off. They would have been struggling mightily. The film showed that. I mean, it wasn't us, our opinion. The film showed that. So I look at this, these next two games as trying to cut the fat, find out who goes. I think the front office for the Denver Broncos, the people that have been here for 8 years, I think the ownership really needs to take a hard look and get rid of that and start building this in a way that Sean Payton would want to see this team built. Although my problem with Sean Payton is different from a lot of people. I do not see him being a coach here for any kind of rebuilding. So I believe that when the time Russell Wilson goes, I believe he will go too, because he has already proven that he is not into rebuilding organizations. Of course, the Saints did not pay him, the king's ransom either. Don't know if that may play a part in him deciding to stay here. I don't think that Sean Payton being a GM slash, a Bill Belichick or his offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels or a Mike Shanahan. I'm going to be the GM and the head coach and everything. I'm going to be like John Elway, quasi owner, head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive. I'm going to be it all. So. I just don't think that's going to work either. So I just think either way, it's a screwed up situation. The Broncos have a long way to go before they're anything relevant. I would say you spent $250 million on Russell Wilson, so you might as well just keep him until all that baggage that went along with that, and you can start drafting and developing. But you got to have an identity. But again, I just don't see Sean Payton being that kind of guy where he's going to want to, start from the ground up. I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the money, it's now he's got all this money. Maybe he has something invested where he would do something like that. But, the way things are configured right now, you got people in the front office from the old Elway Ellis regime. You have John Elway, apparently, according to both George Payton and Sean Payton, according to them in their press conference, you still have John Elway lurking around. He obviously, he's done. He's got to be done with that nonsense. His nephew needs to go. A lot of these content creators need to go as well. And they need to start bringing in people that actually know something about football. Scouts that are scouting Baron Browning as an edge rusher isn't going to cut it. Sanders as some sort of an edge rusher isn't going to cut it. They're going to have to learn about interior pass rush, build from the inside out, have an identity. The Denver Broncos are going to have to figure out what coverage linebacking is, why it's important in today's NFL to have great coverage linebacking, how to scout coverage linebackers, and implement them. Get rid of the Josie Jules, the Singletons. They're going to have to the Denver Broncos are going to have to realize that their tackles suck. They need McGlinchey. I have a whole computer file from doing a film breakdown of the Broncos offense of McGlinchey. I have stacks of McGlinchey bloopers. I didn't put them together. They just are on the computer because we kept seeing the guy just getting his ass handed to him day in and day out. If you're offensive line has to hold as much as they're holding, they're not going to hold up. You may be getting away from holding by the referees, but that just means that you can't, you're just piss poor in pass blocking, pass pro. They need to continue to work on that downhill running with their offensive line too. I mean, let's just face it. People were saying that the Broncos were playing too conservative in the New England game, but if you can't run the football at all, we've seen this before. The Broncos against the Texans, they wanted to play Shermer ball. They wanted to be the greatest show on turf. And what happened was that it was a loss. We saw sacks, we saw interceptions, we saw fumbles. And this is when Sutton was in the game, okay? So it wasn't just a fact that Sutton wasn't in the game. You got to play more than just one quarter of football. And we had kept saying that if a team doesn't turn the ball over, that's all it is. If the team doesn't turn the ball over, the Broncos are going to struggle beating that team. The Broncos needed all the help they could get. We said this before the season started, that's if they're going to get wins, it's because the ball's going to bounce their way. Teams are going to be bumbling and stumbling, and there'll be multiple turnovers, and that's the only way that this team can win. And what really pisses off the Cecil Lammies of the world is his bullshit doesn't cut it. And he's listening to people say, yeah, you said this and this, you fucking asshole. And you were wrong. And these guys, guess what? They just stayed the course. They kept trying to explain. Now, all we do is watch film. Pro Football Focus is a PR firm. That nothing more, nothing less. They throw out a bunch of stupid numbers. Players who played the game, former players, none of them have any respect for PFF. It's a PR firm to put lipstick on pigs and make people look better than they are. It is who they are. And I just encourage everybody to watch film. Not watch what you want to watch. Watch it objectively. Watch it over and over. Just watch it for what it is. But I don't think a lot of people even know what holding is anymore because the NFL lets offensive linemen do it across the board. I don't know. The product is going downhill. I think it may continue to go downhill. We did film study on Patrick Mahomes, and I'll tell you, I'll just be honest with you. As bad as this guy's getting, because he doesn't have to work hard. He's not Manning. He's not Brady. He's not going in and watching film over and over and over again. He listens to everybody tell him how great he is. So he doesn't have to work that hard, and it shows. When we did the film study with Mahomes with the Broncos, the guy had all kinds of open receivers and just chose not to throw to him. I don't think he even saw him. And these were wide open, lots of wide open receivers. So I just don't think, I think he's not as good as they want to make him out to be. And I think he's just listened to it. And I think that's what's going on with the Broncos. Broncos front office wanted to hear how great they were. They didn't want to look at the film that said, my God, you're lucky these teams coughed the ball up all this time because you guys aren't as good as you think you are. You barely beat a Buffalo team. You needed 11 guys out on the field. There's no way to gloss over that. Yes, we're going to look at that. You had every break in the world. You should have destroyed that team. And yeah, you would have lost it had you not, and there was a pass interference. You couldn't get downfield on your own merit. You had to wait for the Buffalo Bills to screw up because the Broncos just can't do it on their own. And it's that kind of culture that has to change. You can't be hoping that the other team fucks up just so you can get downfield. You have to be a dominant team. At least the Bronco fans that I knew growing up, they wanted the Broncos to be dominant. They didn't want help from the refs. So until you have actual cultural change, you have no cultural change going on. People don't want to do it the hard way. They want to do it the easy way, and they think that, you buy a quarterback, $250 million, and Russell Wilson is not worth $250 million. He doesn't read the field all the time, hanging on to the ball a lot of times. There's a lot of problems with Russell Wilson. In today's NFL, I guess he's competent enough to play, but, you're stuck with him. But could you do better? You should move on from him, but you're going to have to, the biggest thing is build a team around a quarterback at this point. So anyway, I just don't see the benching, the so-called benching. I don't think he's benched. I think they just said that you guys call it benching. I call it more the white flag has been risen. We're not going to the playoffs, so let's just go and find out who we're going to keep and who we're going to get rid of next year. So, and that includes the backup quarterback. They want to take a look at him. So playing Russell Wilson at this point is just a moot point. There's really no point to it. You're out of the playoffs, Denver Broncos. Plain and simple, it's over.